Hello, welcome to an educational moment. This is Dr. Pat Dingle, and I want to thank you for coming in and joining with me today. Today, I will be discussing current issues in the field of education. There are a number of issues going on nationwide. Of course, locally, on March the 14th, 2011, teachers and workers from the PGCA, MSCA, which is the Maryland State Educators Association, the Prince George's County Educators Association, AFT, I think it's ASME, numerous unions got together and marched on the Keep the Promise rally. I thought it was a wonderful experience. I participated in the rally as a member of MSCA and PGCA. And essentially, approximately 15,000 workers marched on the state capitol to bring awareness to the issue of the importance of funding public education in our state, such that the students will not be hurt. As you know, the state of Maryland for the last 3 years has gotten the #1 ranking in education as it relates to the United States. So I think the rally was very successful, and I saw some coverage of the rally. Of course, I did not see the media coverage, which is often garnered by other issues, such as it has been about at least a week, and I have not seen any of the footage on national television. And typically on national issues or state issues, I often see footage every day, 2 or more times per day on issues. So I do not understand if this is commentary on the status of this issue, but certainly as an educator in the state of Maryland and Prince George's County in general, I certainly feel that education is extremely important, and certainly it's crucial to our students in our county and our state right now, because the United States has lost ranking in various areas in the field of education. For example, no longer, according to one of the media outlets, is the United States #1 even in the number of college degrees that are issued by the United States, even though many of these students who are being educated are educated in our country, but they go to other countries. So our competitiveness as a nation is at stake. So funding is absolutely crucial. Recently, I read that the county executive, Rashawn Baker, did give additional monies to the county for education, and so he should have, because the education of our children, the welfare of our country or our nation, it's at stake. The issues which I would like to speak about today basically are primarily national issues. The first issue which I would like to discuss comes from the Principal Leadership magazine. I am a member of the NASSP, so I get this particular magazine. And the issue that is at stake is a case that will be brought to the Supreme Court from the state of North Carolina, and it involves Miranda rights as they relate to students in public schools. This article, as I said, is taken from the Principal Leadership magazine. This is March 2011, and it's in a feature of the magazine called Cases in Point. And basically, an issue is sort of spelled out well. And in this case, the author who wrote the article is Kelly R. Taylor, Esquire, meaning she's an attorney. And essentially, Kelly Taylor explains the historical basis for the Miranda law in the initial case, and then this particular lawyer goes into explaining what the current issue is. The Miranda rights came about as a result of a 1963 case with Ernesto Miranda. And essentially, he was picked up and he was questioned regarding a kidnapping. And he was taken to the police station where he was questioned for a couple of hours. And he was not told his rights. And he confessed to the crime, and he was convicted and sentenced to 20 to 30 years. However, the case was appealed because his attorneys felt that the confession was forced. And so when the case got to the United States Supreme Court, it was overturned because the court agreed. So it's very important to, tell those who are suspected of crimes or are alleged to have committed a crime to make them aware of their procedural rights or the rights that they are entitled to. The Miranda warning that came about as a result of this case have 4 parts to it, and I'm reading from the article. Number 1, you have the right to remain silent. 2, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. 3, you have the right to an attorney. 4, if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Then the attorney Taylor also makes the reader aware that the officer should try to ascertain whether the individual who has been issued his or her Miranda rights understands what has just been said. So now moving on to the North Carolina case, I think this is going to have far-reaching effects, as the author points out, that it possibly will have far-reaching effects into the public schools and into law enforcement as to how students are questioned at school. For example, this case comes from North Carolina. It came about in 2005, and it involves a 13-year-old who is a special education student. And this student was pulled out of class and interrogated with approximately 4 people. Based upon what I read, I think there were about 4 people in the room. And this student was not made aware of his or her rights. And then this student was not allowed to talk to his or her parents. Additionally, a search of the student's home was conducted based upon the student's permission. So it has some far-reaching issues once it's decided. And the reason that this student was questioned is because there were a number of break-ins I believe in the community. The student, after a 30 or 40-minute interview or interrogation, confessed to the crime and, of course, granted permission to those questioning him to search his home. Now, the problem one of the problems that the attorney here, Taylor, points out is that after the confession, then somebody decides that he or she would explain rights, after they have already interrogated the student. And again, the interview was 30 to 45 minutes without the student's parents being aware, without the student having an opportunity to speak to his or her parents. So this is, of course, an issue. The other issue, of course, is this is a student with special needs. So even that area of education will probably be touched once a decision is made. It's expected that a decision will be made in June 2011. Now, this case has been heard on the at the trial court level, and it was also heard at the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals and trial court refused to suppress the confession and the evidence, which was requested by the student's attorney. So I encourage you to keep track of the case. And I, for transparency's sake, want to say that I'm not an attorney, and of course, you know, I'm not giving legal advice, but I can discuss the legal issues. So keep an eye on this case. Now, second issue that I think is very important occurred in Education Week, and this is the Education Week for the week of March 9th. Education Week is a lovely newspaper for keeping up with current trends in education. And the specific article that I want to bring to your attention is called Arts Education for Minority Children Drops by Eric W. Robelen. It's capital R-O-B-E-L-E-N. Essentially, Robelen states that based upon a study by the National Endowment for the Arts, that the ability to have arts education is dropping for minority children. And they discuss African Americans and Hispanic Americans. And essentially, I believe they're comparing 1982 with 2008. And there is a graphic. And essentially, according to what I read, the African American in 1982, about 50% of African American children were being exposed to arts education, and this fell about 25% to, it says about 26. It fell about 25%. So in other words, instead of like 50%, 51% approximately, it was in the 25, 28 range. The arts education for Hispanic students also dropped, but the drop was not as drastic. It appears that this was in the 47th percentile, and it dropped down to about the 28th percentile. I think this is very, very important. I think it's important because the arts in education really makes a difference in terms of how students are impacted. Traditionally, certain cultures, as a matter of fact, every culture has some type of art in their culture. Every people, every nation has the arts in the culture. So that means that even though you may be low income, or you may be an underrepresented minority, you may be in poverty, a lot of times, even though these children are in poverty, somewhere in the family, somewhere in the culture, they are exposed to arts. And so when they go to school, they may have the ability to use background information to do better in the arts.